Good evening, everyone. Sam Shihab with Shihab Burke with me is my dear friend and partner, Brian Burke. We are going to be spending an hour with our friends and the immigrant community to answer questions, discuss a topic of interest, and perhaps learn a couple things from you because we would like to learn from you as well. If we don't learn from you, then we can never get better at what we do.
Sure.
We practice immigration law in Dublin, Ohio, with emphasis on employment immigration and family immigration. We take clients from all over the world and all over the U.S. And today we have this week we always focus on current events this week that may impact immigration.
Hmm.
Obviously, we have this very unfortunate incident with uh, President Trump or candidate Trump, however you want to call him, being shot at. And then also he made a vice presidential selection
Yeah.
today.
Yep.
Today.
The last couple
Uh,
hours. Yeah.
and with that, I would like to take the opportunity with Brian to talk about who this person is, what's his immigration stance, because it can impact your case.
Yeah.
Brian, tell us a little bit about what we get. How are you first? Have you been?
Doing okay. It's summer here in Ohio. Big time weather. It's in the 90s right now. I'm behind this lovely glass wall here, but it's summer in Ohio. We're keeping busy. H-1B cap's over, but there's still plenty to do in the world of immigration, I guess, is the executive summary from me.
Yeah,
Um,
keeping us busy
yeah.
for sure. Yes.
But
So
let's talk.
this, yeah, who is this guy, Brian?
This
What's
guy,
his
well, he
name?
has a name,
Yeah.
JD Vance, and he is a known quantity to us, Sam, because he represents us here in the state of Ohio. He's one of two senators from the state of Ohio. The other guy being Sherrod Brown. JD Vance is Donald Trump's vice presidential candidate pick. He is a Republican, obviously, and we thought it might be fun to talk about what his policies and stances are on immigration. I guess I would say that, anybody's policies and stances on immigration are a lot of talk, especially, from congressmen and senators. Nobody has really gotten anything done on immigration in the last, 10 plus years, 15 years, 20 years. Um, and sometimes people introduce, fantasy laws that they like to see getting put into effect, but, their ideas aren't ones that necessarily picked up by everybody else. So we'll talk about some of those things, but we'll just talk about, what this guy's stance is on immigration stuff that might, affect people in our audience here. And I kind of really focused in on my search on employment immigration. And he has some stances on that, which are interesting. Is the bottom line.
So JD Vance is a venture capitalist
One time,
and
yes,
a
is what I
politician.
hear. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how he would like to, he's a venture capitalist, obviously. So he's a money man,
Yep.
uh, you know, and he's young.
Hmm.
He's a young guy, and he is a big mouth. He talks a lot.
He's a politician after all.
Yeah, he gets people going, right?
Yeah.
Um, he wrote a book.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's his sort of.
described his childhood. Yeah.
Yeah, called Hillbilly Elegy, which is sort of his signature thing. It's about pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. It's about hard living in Ohio,
Yes.
essentially, as I vaguely recall the premise of it.
And he
Um,
was he in the Marines?
I think he
He
served.
enlisted in the Marines in high school in
Hmm,
2003 and served in Iraq.
yeah,
Just to let you know.
yeah, okay,
So he has definitely a patriotic background, if you
hmm,
will.
hmm.
Um, he polls well in Ohio. People like him in Ohio.
Well, he got elected senator here in Ohio for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in 2016, he was not a um, pro-Trump. He was critical of him.
Yeah, anti-Trump. There's some talk of him saying, Trump was. I don't know if dangerous is the word. It sounds like you're looking at something that something where you have
Well,
perhaps a direct quote, but
I'm not going to quote what I'm reading because
yeah,
what is said, what's being quoted is quite offensive.
yeah.
And I don't want to,
Repeat
it's
those
from
words.
from
Yeah,
USA Today,
yeah,
which is a good source,
yeah.
but he called him a very terrible name back in 2016. But he did a 180-degree turnaround,
Yep.
and now he has become so. I mean, for he for someone to be so critical of Trump and then to do a turnaround and then become his vice presidential pick. That's quite impressive, in my
Um,
opinion.
I would say that there has to be an element of personal charm in that to make somebody forget that is the bottom line. So I'll
Right?
give that.
Right?
I'll put
Yeah.
that one in the pro JD Vance category. He must have some sort of personal charm over a man like Donald Trump to make that sort of turnaround,
Well,
for
he's
sure.
young. I think he appeals to the working class. He talks their talk. Has a military background,
Sure.
um, and surprised that he picked a guy from Ohio because we said in Ohio it looks like maybe going Republican. Anyways,
Yeah. Well, I think my logic is you're supposed to pick somebody on the vice presidential side who having them involved will help you carry their state, you know? And my estimation is Donald Trump already has Ohio in the bag. But, so be it. Um,
so let's talk immigration. So
yeah.
where does his immigration stand, Brian? I know you've taken about 10, 15 minutes of your very busy day
I've
to
taken more than
dig
that.
a little bit more than that,
Yeah.
to look into his immigration footprint,
Yeah.
and yeah, tell us what you have found out.
Well, I try to, find things directly from the metaphorical horse's mouth, and I pulled a lot of stuff directly from his website. That's what he broadcast his political position from his, JD Vance, Senator JD Vance web um, website, and there's a lot of talk about what we do here. There's employment. Oh, he doesn't necessarily talking about employment, immigration, but he's talking about the impacts between immigration and employment in the United States, and I'll give some direct quotes from his website. I wonder when you hear your colleagues and other economists outside of the Fed talk about the influx of immigration, the fact that it has admittedly put downward pressure on wages. Obviously, that has put some downward pressure on inflation, but it also puts downward pressure on the wages that people earn to pay for their families. So, expressing the idea that immigration drives down wages, people coming from other countries drives down the U.S. labor market.
Hmm.
And I would note that a lot of his talk on this subject in this sort of context is, about illegal immigration. Um, One of his sort of sticking points is the city of Springfield, Ohio, which he alleges has been had its housing market ruined by migrants, for example. Um, you know, um, so that's something right from his website. That an increase of labor putting down American wages, and that's something that is sort of at the heart of what he broadcasts to people. Um, have a little bit
He's he's
more,
he's not
and
even he's not even 40 years old. He's 39
yep,
years old.
yep,
Very young, and this is something that Trump needed to kind of counter the age issue, which probably
sure,
not a big deal for him. Problem for him. It's the problem is on the other guy's back right now. The monkey is on the other guy's back, I guess. But yeah, he's 39 years old.
yep.
But yeah, you were saying that
No, I'm,
you
I'm just
got
going to keep on reading the sort of things he says in
yeah,
his promotional material about himself.
yeah.
If we say is quote unquote, if we say we have a really tight labor market and we say that there are more than one job openings per worker, there are two ways you could plausibly solve that. Probably more than that, but two obvious ways. One is through an influx of workers via the immigration system. Another way is by raising wages and bringing some of the workers that are on the sidelines. I think specifically of the 7 million prime age men that have dropped out of the labor force. Why isn't that more the focus of policymakers rather than you see labor shortage, rather than bringing in a large number of new immigrants? Why not try to boost wages in a way that brings some of those workers off the sidelines? So the idea that if you bring in foreign workers, they're taking jobs of American people in the American workforce that have been sidelined, and that's his position. And I'm here to offer a counterpoint. I don't think his. I guess I don't think his position is crazy. That if there are people in the United States that are not working, that are quote unquote sidelined, it's what is the solution to that, and what kind of solutions have been proposed. And I think of things like work training programs, education for people in the United States. Those programs are kind of perpetually kneecapped by politicians as being un-American, giving people a leg up. And when I think of maybe with the topic that we'll turn to next, Vance's position on H-1B visas, I'd think, well, if you want those 7 million, allegedly sidelined American workers to take those jobs, I'm sorry. Maybe there's a gap there. I'm not hearing massive tales of U.S. tech workers being unable to find a job. Then again, Sam, we looked at an article from the New York Times a couple of weeks ago about the difficulty of finding jobs in the world of tech right now.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
New U.S. graduates are finding difficulty finding jobs in the
Yeah.
tech field.
Yeah, so I mean,
Silicon
what can I
Valley
say? I'm
graduates.
an immigration attorney. I don't have that insight into that job market, but again, I like to when I think of problems like this, I think of how do you address that problem directly. Um, is if you get rid of if you eliminate the immigration option and you just leave it to those quote unquote 7 million sidelined U.S. workers, it's well, what do you do with them? If the jobs still need to be done, there need to be people who can do them, and you have to make sure that people can do those jobs. I guess is my take on that. Eliminating immigration does not magically make everybody skilled enough to take those jobs that immigrants are taking.
Obviously, he does not have a degree in labor force science.
Uh,
He's just saying his opinion. But
yeah.
what does he say about H-1B, Brian? You get something for us.
Well, if you don't mind, Sam, I'd like to. Though having listening to Brian make direct quotes is fun, we have a little bit of JD Vance video. Do you mind?
Yeah, please.
All right. Turn off our little bar here and.
So let me just tell you this story that always breaks my heart because I think it shows the indignities that American workers are put through in this country these days. Where there was a guy who worked at a Silicon Valley tech company, earned a good wage, middle class guy, maybe even an upper middle class guy, and a tech company used the H-1B visa to replace him with a worker from. I'm sorry. And it happens. It happens everywhere. It happens all the time. But the H-1B visa is again this unholy alliance between government and our biggest corporations. The Biden administration has blown up the number of H-1B visas given because they know that it allows their corporate cronies to undercut the wages of American workers. Now, what happens is the Silicon Valley companies, or a ton of companies in Ohio too, they apply for these H-1B visas. The people that they pay who come from India, Malaysia, wherever to work in these companies, they make way less than their American counterpart did. So you're literally just importing a foreigner to replace an American worker and paying them way less wages. But
Well, hope everybody was able to hear that. Let me know in the chat if you do. I've never tried that. If you do or do not, I've never tried that function of our streaming software before. But basically, that was from January 2022, I believe, as best I could tell, and that was JD Vance talking about his position on H-1B.
So here's the words that I wrote down. First off, he begins with the word indignities, the indignities
Mhm.
that American workers are going through.
Mhm.
So it has he quickly made it very personal.
Yeah.
That's number one. The second thing I've heard is come from people, immigrants coming from, and then what's the first country he mentioned?
India.
India and other countries.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Okay,
in India, Malaysia, wherever. You know.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and then talk about the unholy alliance
yeah,
between corporations and the administration.
yeah,
Um, so this is a talking point, reflects obviously a clear lack of understanding.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, there's a
but I
couple
don't
points.
think he's going to
Yeah,
gain the understanding.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, no. Can you continue your thoughts, Sam? The lack of
No,
understanding I wanted to
a lack of
highlight.
understanding of the issues and what this which should be programmed. I mean, he's also the other thing that I picked up is significantly less money than the American, and replaced by what he does not know, that there's probably somewhere between 600 to 750,000, maybe 800,000. Once I throw a number, I'll be corrected by my listeners who have better numbers.
Yeah.
H1B workers in the IT field from other countries.
Yep.
There is not a number of American workers available to fill these vacancies. That number of cases.
Sure.
There was a number was thrown at me that Apple has over 15,000 engineers in China. Apple has,
I would believe that.
because
Yeah.
they don't have the number of engineers they can find here in the U.S. And I will not start to guess how many engineers Microsoft has in India
Yeah.
with their massive center over there.
Yeah.
So our American companies are going out to foreign countries, setting up massive operations,
Sure.
because we don't have them here.
Yeah.
And the very small number we bring in here to fill the need, or large number, um, is cannot be replaced with homegrown talent.
Oh yeah.
It's not available. And the last point I'd like to make:
Hmm.
90% of graduate engineering and IT program, 90%
Hmm.
approximately, are foreign nationals
Yeah. I
today.
mean, that was my experience as an undergraduate. Like over 15 years ago. I was my undergraduate degrees in creative writing, but I took a couple of the computer science courses, and they're more likely than not taught by or filled by people of foreign origin.
Yeah.
Is the bottom line. A couple of things I wanted to sort of
And we want to jump on taking questions, because
yeah,
we can talk about this for hours,
we
you and
should.
I. But go ahead, and then maybe they go
Well,
and take
one thing
comments from people. Yeah.
I wanted to pick out from what Vance said in that quote was that the quote the Biden administration has quote unquote blown up the number of H-1B visas given. Now, I would reject that premise because we've been on 85,000 H-1B visas a year since as long as I've been doing my job. Um, and that's kind of that. Is an interesting part of that. I guess Sam. I can wrap up my JD. We're already 20 minutes deep. I can wrap it. I can wrap up my JD Vance talk pretty quick. But just in sort of what else is out there in his policy. I don't know if you stumbled across this one in your searching, but mine was something he proposed from 2023 called the Timely Departure Act, and it was requiring non-immigrants to pay a bond of anywhere from I think it was $5,000 to $15,000 to Homeland Security upon entering the United States to ensure their timely departure. Meaning, if you wanted to bring, if a visitor wanted to come to the United States, you pay a bond to the U.S. government to secure your exit from the country. And what do you think of that, Sam?
Well, it takes us back to the bonded labor concept. I mean, if even H-1B workers have to pay a bond for the U.S. government,
Filing filing.
money to pay money to make money, and you're controlled, and then um,
I don't know. It's just
it brings us such a. I mean, now the government is collecting money from immigrants instead of serving them and helping them. Um, wow.
Well, I guess my position on that, it sort of falls in line with the H-1B concept. If you get rid of people working in the United States on H-1B visas, you get rid of people coming to the United States for legitimate purposes. It creates, I don't know, it seems to potentially the counterpoint is it can create a chilling effect to drive people in businesses outside the United States. It's basically fine. Those jobs are entirely offshore. Then you
Yeah,
know,
there's a lot of suggestions that have been thrown here and there that I hear that all H-1B workers should go on one-day strike in the U.S.
yeah.
To highlight their demand and need. I bet you the whole country will go in a shutdown mode. Um,
Well, yeah. On the
not that I
technology and engineering
advocate that.
side, for sure.
Yeah, I mean banks will not work probably,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and
I mean,
so forth.
that's something that's not really talked about that much. I mean, who's on an H-1B visa? It's 95. I'm just making up a number, but the vastly high proportion of them goes to people with technology or engineering backgrounds. It's not as if the average person's the teenager's job at the grocery store is being taken by somebody on an H-1B visa. That
Well,
sort of thing.
the H-4 visas, there's been a complaint about that.
That is something which well, that could be on the
All,
table again. The H4
all
visa and work
civilized, I mean,
authorization.
all civilized countries allow spouses to work. How can you bring somebody, but the spouse has to stay at home? When is the spouse stay at home is a concept that's acceptable in our fabric of
Not
society?
at this present time, but historically it is. Sam, one person
Not in the
working
last,
in the
not
household.
in the last 25, 30 years.
Maybe that's the world. That's
Yeah.
just a
Well,
thought.
how many professionals the wife works at home?
I think we've traded positions here, Sam. But if you want to advocate for the concept of the classic nuclear family, it's you pay U.S. workers in the United States enough to work one job and have somebody at home to take care of the family, manage the household, pay the single worker enough to take care of the family, and that becomes a possibility. You know,
Explain.
well, there is a fundamental among certain people. There's a fundamental belief that the American way of life has been fundamentally changed, and a part of it is because um, that well, there's a lot of ways to do it. Some people would say things like women should be taking care of the household, and
Well,
some of them would say it comes
the
from
other the partner. We'll
yeah,
make it the partner.
yeah,
Well, I
sure,
think if I follow your thought,
yeah,
then I'm gonna need to quadruple the H-1B visa program
sure,
of all these jobs that are not going to be filled in the U.S.
yeah,
or more than that,
yeah.
or shrink the economy.
I mean, to be clear, I advocate for the modern world we live in now because, well, I love my wife and she loves working
I
her
think you're
jobs.
I think you're in trouble at home.
I know I'm not
She's
in
listening to you.
trouble at all, but I'm happy. I'm an attorney. I should be able to play the devil's advocate. I
So
uh,
uh,
I guess.
so so with that,
Yeah.
6:24,
Yeah.
taking 20 minutes. So he's definitely a conservative. He has obviously taken a position that's not very much pro-immigrant. Nothing he
Yeah.
said about what immigrants bring to the table.
Yeah,
Uh,
obviously we haven't touched upon the border wall stuff, but he's obviously in step with Donald Trump on that stuff. Protect the southern border, et cetera, et
yeah.
cetera. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
All right. So yeah, we're gonna take questions,
yeah,
and just remember, we don't know enough about your case to give you legal advice that's comprehensive. We just give you just connect the dots, and then you will need to hire an attorney. If the case is perceived as a general question, we'll give you a general answer, but specific questions requires really counsel to look at the full case. There's no attorney-client relationship established because we're talking here on the World Wide Web. And if you have any comments on what we're talking about or any other questions you want to bring, please go ahead and post it, and we will do our best to get to it. Brian, let's take the first one.
yes. From Nidhi Raz. Um, is there any chances of spillover or spill across for India? Which will it be higher in EB2 or EB3 during the next several years? So this is a question. It seems to relate to Well, it seems to be related to
It's
spillover
availability
between the visa categories, between the employment categories, right? I
across
think
for
so.
India. Yeah.
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 So I guess what I would say is spillover from EB1, the rest of the world, into EB1, India, is obviously on the table. I guess, Sam, we didn't mention there's a new visa bulletin out. Uh,
Yes, there is
yeah.
some progress, but not
Um,
much.
yeah. Um, But right now, the India, let me see, get to the employment base. India, sorry, the rest of the world, EB1 is current. Uh, China and India are not, and thereby there's definitely going to be spillover there. In EB2 and EB3, I guess the short answer, for my short answer for Nitty is until that the rest of the world is current in those categories, the most backlogged country, India, won't see any benefit of spillover, right?
And none of them are.
Yeah, the only one that's current is EB1, and that's where India will see the benefit, and not until
It has been so. Yes,
yeah,
and it will continue to
yeah,
benefit. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
So, um, from Pakala Prasad, becoming current in August 2024, what can we do to get the officer to review our case? Can medicals be resubmitted as they have expired, but there's no RFE yet? What do you think of that? About that, Sam? Just
Current
resubmitting my
August of 2024. Number one, that's congratulations. What can we do to after review? Obviously, it's important that you immediately contact them and let them know.
yeah,
Um, uh, and whether or not the medical to be resubmitted is whether or not the previous one expired. And I
yeah,
think they're becoming the last uh, direction from USCIS. Recent medicals do not expire at all. So it depends on when
it's
was
when they
your.
were after one. I think it's ones that are signed after a date in November 2023, as I recall.
I'm trying to remember the date. Yeah.
Yeah,
So if it's
I'll look it
done,
up. Yeah,
if it's done before and it's expired, I would definitely preemptively now go ahead and get it ready and send it. Contact him. I would definitely contact him. Let them know that you're current and you want to have your case adjudicated, and
yeah.
maybe call them, call the USCIS, and also say the same thing and see what happens and document that.
From me, I think what I would put on the menu is medical exams for sure. That's you have an excuse to send those. A supplement J. Remind them that you still have a job offer there, and basically give them everything they need in order to make your case current. You know,
So would
well,
you
rather
do
to approve your case, rather. Excuse me.
so you would do a new supplement J?
Yeah, it's I like the idea of a package that says, "Hey, you blow the dust off my case. It's ready to go. You put it on the shelf, and here's everything you need to update it. If you had any questions about whether I have a job available, I do. If you my medical exams, they're refreshed, and that in my mind is everything that they
Before the
could
RFE.
need on the average case to avoid that RFE and get them to do it. And I've tried it before, and I've seen some results. I sent out a couple right at the beginning of this month, and I'm crossing my fingers for those people as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good
supplement J
advice.
packages. Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know, Sam. You take the next one from good
Sure.
Mr. Rao.
Raul, yes. Hi, it has been 4 weeks since I applied for I-765 renewal with CO9. No receipt notice till now. 4 weeks, okay. As no fee required, no check sent to track. What are my options now? Should I reapply? Thank you. I think we're seeing more than 4 week delay, Brian.
Yeah, I have
With
somebody for
Mhm.
whom I need to call USCIS, which is painful because his naturalization case was submitted on, I believe, like June 1st, and the money order he sent has been cashed, but crickets.
No,
He has
no,
not received the receipt notice. We have not received the receipt notice, and
yeah.
I don't know how they're going to hunt it down without a receipt number. But I have to do my due diligence and call USCIS to see if I can figure out what's going on there.
Because you paid with a cashier's check.
A money order, but yeah,
Mm. So
and
there's no, it's not trackable. You don't have
yeah,
anything. That's sad. The same problem with this I-765. Obviously, it's not trackable because there's
yeah,
no payment made.
yeah,
What do you do? So given the fact that we're really running into 4 weeks, I mean 6 weeks plus, I would give it a little bit more time.
hmm
We have not seen I-765s not coming through with receipt notices in general. We're seeing all of them being receipted. So
yeah,
I don't have a concern that you're not going to get yours in time. But obviously, be patient is the way. Is what would be my recommendation.
yeah. I mean, hop in line with me, Raul. I'm going to be calling USCIS sometime today or tomorrow to see if I can get them to hunt down a case and tell me whether it exists without a receipt number. I'm highly doubtful I'm going to be able to do it. But these are the options you have. You don't really have great options on this front, unfortunately. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. To Ratchet. Ratchet. So, is it okay to submit H1/H4 visa renewal application to USCIS and travel to India/come back on existing valid visa stamp while renewal application is in progress?
I have no problem with it. Brian, what do you think?
So
There are
this
a couple
falls
of caveats. Yeah.
Yeah, this falls for me, and the devil is in the details. I mean, the early thing that you would have taught me early on, Sam, is that you are allowed to travel while an extension case is pending. You're not allowed to if you travel while a change of status case is pending. They will consider that abandoned. If you travel while extension case is pending, they will not. Fine, and that's fine. Um, you got to really watch those travel documents. You watch your I-94s carefully. Is the bottom line on this? I would say that if you are filing an H1, if there's an H1B being filed for you, odds are that's being filed by an attorney. And I think the answer is to ask them your pointed, travel questions as to when you're going to travel and what's the time, what's the time line of filing and when you're going to travel and what you need to do. Typically, the recommendation is if your H1B has been approved, you are going to want to use that new H1B approval notice to enter the United States. Otherwise, you might have some problems. It's really kind of, these scenarios are kind of difficult for me, Sam. You really don't know whether you have a problem until you see the I-94 you get when you enter the country. I guess is my take on it.
Yeah. So this is good. You raise excellent points, Brian. So uh, based on this question, they both have valid visa stamp, and it's a renewal.
Yep.
So it would appear to me that the respective Ratchet and her and
Spouse.
his spouse
Yeah.
are on H1 and H4 now. That's the assumption, and will leave the country while these H1 and H4 is valid.
Yep.
They may return while the H1 and H4 is valid, or they may return after the H1 and H4 had expired.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if they return while the H1 and H4 is valid, there are no issues.
Highly unlikely for there to be one. I would still
Yeah.
want to see the I-94, but yeah.
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 If they return after the H1 and H4 had expired and they have pending H1 and H4, becomes the interesting question.
Yeah.
Because they have, number one, do they have a receipt notice in their hand? Can they present the receipt notice under the portability and trying to enter? But that is going to be a big problem there for them.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be admitted without a valid H-1B approval of some sort.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are some AC21 recommendation that you'll be admitted to with an I-94 that matches your H1B stamp, potentially out there. But I don't want to go into these.
Well, your stamp shouldn't go any further than your existing approval notice.
So what you're saying is, I think what we're talking about here is that they really should not stay beyond the H1 and H4 validity period.
Yes, they
have.
Yeah.
And in which case, I think they're fine.
Yes, correct.
In all likelihood, except that not knowing all these things that we have had assumed to answer the question and just squeezing it from the 1.5 line lead us to recommend that send an email to your lawyer who's done the H1 and H4 extension. Say, hey, I'm traveling on this date. I'm returning on this date. That's my plan. Is there a problem? Any recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I have that intended return date, I'll say, okay, well, you're still within the H-1B validity period. You should get an I-94 that aligns with that, and the new one will pick up when they approve it. Things like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
So Nidhi Raz, who was paying attention or engaged at least by our conversation of who matter? How goes it? How does it matter who becomes the president, given that all the congressmen vote on laws on immigration bills?
Wow,
Um,
that's a great question.
yeah.
But I would, and Brian, I would be interested in your opinion.
Mhm.
I would strongly disagree with Roz on that conclusion. Um, 30 years in immigration law had taught me that what the elected president, um, an elected president can have a significant impact on your case and immediately, almost within a year or so.
Yep.
We have lived through many administrations, and the agencies they control, the president control the agencies that process your case. They also control the ability to interpret the laws. Also, they control the latitude they give in approving cases. They control the speed by which cases are reviewed.
Yeah.
They control um, the additional forms that you do. Remember the financial ability form that we had to do in the previous Trump administration,
I-9
and
something. Yeah.
the practically 4.5 inch thick documents that we had to submit with these adjustment of status that
Yep.
we didn't have to do before.
Yep.
So it clearly make when you have a vice president who has a negative opinion, uninformed, ill-informed opinion about what immigrants can do for us, who is from Mansfield, Ohio, which is a small town in the Rust Belt, and I'm sure Middletown, Ohio. I'm sorry,
Oh, I've
he's
been
from
there. Yeah,
Middletown,
I've
Ohio.
been there
Yeah,
many times.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a small little dot north of Cincinnati, south of Dayton. These are areas in southern Ohio where there is poverty and people who are, um, not doing well. And then he comes in and says, "Are you kidding me? We have to save these jobs for Americans." Has absolutely no idea that these jobs there are no Americans available to fill these
Yeah.
jobs.
That's
Um,
yeah. That's that. I mean, I guess I'm going to have the meta version of that conversation. So you're talking about, they're responsible for X, Y, and Z. It's, the classic, I'm going to give my mini US civics lesson. It's the executive branch is responsible for executing the laws. So, you're right, Nidhi. Who the vice president and the president. I guess they can write laws, but they don't have any power to see that they're taken up in Congress. But they see how those laws are executed. And well, that's that. And ultimately, the president still has to sign laws into effect. A Democrat. Let's say if the Democrats controlled the House and the Senate, but Republicans controlled the White House. Those Democrats in Congress wouldn't be able to get much done, and the Republicans that wouldn't control the executive branch would be able to accomplish a lot of their agenda that is not at the quote law level. That's about the regulatory and the policy level. They can do a lot there. It's about what is the power of the executive branch of the United States, and that's sort of a classic topic in legal education and civics education. It's what is the role of the branches of government, and one of the threads of that is the power of the executive. It seems to be expanding rather than contrasting.
so this gentleman, Mr.
Yes.
Vance,
Yes.
is from Middletown, Ohio.
Hmm.
In 2020, the household income in the U.S. was $42,000 a year.
Hmm.
Um, in Middletown was $29,000. In 2022, household income in the U.S. is $50,000. In Middletown, Ohio, was $29,000. Is almost half the national average income wise. So it's definitely a town that is lower income. Uh,
Hmm.
and when they come in and they say, wow, you know, it is depressing our jobs. They have this mentality that our jobs, we're making less money in small town Ohio because of immigrant taking our jobs.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's what a
Well,
president
I,
or
I mean, yeah. I always liked it. For the record, I always liked Middletown. I went to school at Miami of Ohio, Oxford, about 35 minutes away. I'd find myself in Middletown. a whole lot. It is what it is. But
Yeah.
well, this is Brian advocating to go see your small towns in the that aren't your major cities. So you might have a fun time. Yeah, but a good question, Nidhi, for sure. So from Raul. When green card EAD and AP is pending, going out of the country using valid H-1B visa will revoke the EAD and AP applications? Question mark.
Okay.
So
So when a green card is pending, leaving the country on H-1B um, does not revoke your EAD. But clearly, USCIS has taken the position it revokes your pending
advanced parole, yeah.
advanced parole. It does not revoke an approved advanced parole.
Hmm.
Um, the EAD is not affected regardless, but USCIS has taken the position that if you're applying for an advanced parole,
Yeah, if
um,
you have a
new
pending, yeah,
new that's not extension,
yeah,
then that's an abandonment of your advanced parole because you have left the country before receiving the permission to
yep,
re-enter the
yep,
advanced parole. That's what an advanced
yeah,
parole is, a permission to re-enter.
yeah,
Um, and by leaving the country before receiving the approval of the permission to re-enter, you have abandoned the request for permission to re-enter in
yeah,
advanced parole.
yeah.
And that's the position.
I would
Hopefully
point
that
out
clarified. Yeah.
that the ability to travel on an H-1B visa is while you have a pending adjustment of status without advanced parole is sort of a very special exception, because the general rule is if you have a pending adjustment of status and you travel without advanced parole, they will consider your whole green card application to be abandoned. And there's only a very special exception for, I believe it's for H's, and I know L's are on the list. And well, talk to your immigration attorney about what other ones might be on that list of exceptions. And it basically provides for people on those visas to not have an advanced parole and still travel is the bottom line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a repeat question there from Nidhi, so I'm not gonna go back to that one, but I'm gonna go to this
Raul.
little bit from Pakala Prasad here.
All right. Pakala Prasad, 485J, Supplement J, is already submitted and is pending. EB3 filed in October. Okay. I'm assuming October 2023.
Yes. So
Should I reach out to senator or a congressman?
yeah.
Um,
So Pakala Prasad was asking about, I think, well, what do I do when my priority date is current?
is current, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
obviously he would not have filed the EB file. So EB3 filed in October. So I'm assuming the adjustment filed in October.
So no. I think what he's talking about is he submitted
The
a
supplement J,
supplement J for the EB3 category in October. Oh, and I see a problem with that, Sam.
I see EB3 filed October.
What I think, so again, this is why this is making a public service announcement of why you should talk to an immigration attorney of your choosing, because there's gobs of us out there and we like to have these conversations with people when we have the actual facts. But the way I'm reading this, Sam, is that basically that he's had adjustment status pending for a while, and back in October of 2023, when he already had a pending adjustment status, he filed an EB3
So
I-485J. That's how I'm reading it. I
I
want to
see.
go back to the prior comment. Maybe there's some sort of insight. He just says he's becoming current in August 2024. And here's the thing: I can't imagine anybody, based upon the name I'm presuming from India, coming current in August 2024 who didn't file, in 2020 or 2021. Is where I'm at on that mentally.
Well, it depends on whether maybe he's filing new labor certification with a new employer.
This is true. This
So there are
is true.
scenarios.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard to figure this out. But I'm gonna, so with the version, your version. Let's answer your version, which
Okay.
probably a good one. My supplement J for EB3 was filed in October,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Uh,
So my problem with
mhm.
that is if you submit it, if you were originally, again, I'm filling in the details here like a madman. But if you were previously in EB2 and you filed a supplement J in the EB3 category, what it sounds like to me is you're requesting a transfer of underlying basis, right? And if you're
Mhm.
requesting a transfer of underlying basis, your priority date has to be current in order to do that. And as we know, you're just becoming current in August. It would seem to mean your priority date is that transfer underlying basis to EB3 could arguably not be considered valid.
I,
Now,
I would suggest that we have put in so many assumptions in that question
yeah,
that I think answering it would be unfair because people do not know what we're answering.
I would
So,
agree. I would agree.
so let me do this. Let me do this for Pakala.
Yeah,
What do you need to know, Brian? Maybe he can drop it because I see here. Maybe he'll drop it for us here in the
yeah,
subsequent. So we need to know what does EB3 filed in October? Did you file the new adjustment in
yeah,
EB3 in October? You filed supplement J, and when you filed that, were you current in October? Were you not current in October?
mm, yeah,
That would help us. And what is your priority date? Might as well put that date in there
yeah,
for us, and then maybe we can give you a little bit better answer.
yeah. I
Uh,
would
so
agree with that. Yeah,
we will give him a chance to come back and give us a little bit more details to give him a better answer. All
yeah.
right, let's jump to the next one.
So a classic contributor here, a frequent flyer, sweet seller who, as I recall, got a green card at some point. And I guess this question might relate to relatives coming to visit. It's can B1, B2 visa be renewed before 6 months of expiry? Previously, the applicant had done fingerprinting and interview in Chennai, India. Will the applicant qualify for Dropbox in Chennai, India? So, um, my take on those Dropbox policies is if you go to the consulate website and they will tell you, and when you go through the visa application process, what their criteria for Dropbox is right now is the bottom line.
Yeah, I'll try to look that
Yeah,
up quickly as
yeah.
you. Yeah.
I believe, and that's, but can they be renewed before 6 months of expiry? I don't believe they'll typically entertain. I mean, I guess it's possible to put in a request, but the conventional wisdom was you don't apply for a new visa more than 6 months before it expires. I guess
One
there's
hundred
nothing stopping
percent.
you. Yeah,
Yes. I mean, obviously, you can always apply, and they can always say no, but that's a waste of time and money.
yeah,
Um, the um, the point I want to make is you have to provide a reasonable explanation.
yeah.
Why are you doing this? And does it make sense for the consulate to
Yeah,
accept it?
that's true. They'll entertain any sort of visa application if you give them a good reason, of course. Yeah,
But they're typically skeptical of renewing anything 6 months before it expires as a general rule.
yeah.
And the reason
Why
they
do?
are
Yeah,
is just they're overwhelmed.
yeah,
And people come to them because, if there's a wedding, and I don't want to do the wedding preparations until I know I have a visa for my mom and dad, and the hall reservation, the letter is booking 9 months in advance. I cannot get something closer to that, and therefore I want to know, and my visa is expiring, and a good explanation that can make sense.
yeah, yeah.
You could, but just because I want it is not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, my logic is the same thing. It's oh, you have a visa that's valid for 6 months, and you want to travel, go travel, come back, and then come back and apply for a visa if you want to travel again in the future. You
And
know?
not only that, but also um, uh, a visa is the permission to enter the U.S.
Hmm.
is not the permission how long you stay in the U.S.
Which is true. Exactly. Yeah.
So if you're staying, let's say, if you have a plan for next year, we'll come back 6 months later.
Yeah.
So you really have to have a reason. I am skeptical. Um, I'm skeptical that this thing will work unless there is a compelling reason that you can present to them that's unique.
Yeah. I mean, but Sam, you highlighted something that I want to just emphasize. Visas validity, the validity of a visa stamp only governs how long you could the period during which you can apply for entry to the United States.
Correct.
Whereas, if your relative has 2 days left on their B visa and they show up to the border, they can be admitted for 6 months based upon that visa with 2 days left, as long as the customs folks are doing their job right, and they typically do
Yeah.
in this scenario.
Yeah.
So, I mean, your visa has some heft to it beyond just the date that expires, I guess.
So let's assume that you're planning a cruise with
Sure.
your mom and dad
Yep.
9 months from now,
Mm-hmm.
and their visa is expiring in 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they're planning on coming in. Um, 7, 8 months from now, and you gotta book the cruise 8, 9 months in advance to get your 50% discount. That is reasonable to present to the council and say, I
Yeah.
need visibility a little bit longer so we can
Yeah.
plan our trip because of this, and that.
Yeah.
I mean, those things, those things make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they give discount 8 months from now. I don't like cruises. I don't cruise. Brian loves cruises. It's your thing to do.
I like
It,
it. I like it, Sam. I don't have to do anything on a cruise. I'm in the middle of the
that's the
ocean. I can't.
problem.
Nobody can change
That's
my plans.
that's precisely the problem. That's
Well,
precisely the problem.
Sam, you like to bike. I could see that a problem on a cruise. I like to run. I can just hop on a treadmill. I'm happy to do that in the middle
Well,
of an
I can
ocean.
help on the stationary.
That's
The
no
last
no.
the last time I cruised, Brian, the last time I cruised, let me tell you why I don't like cruising. They rigged every mirror and every
Yeah,
scale. Yes,
yeah,
and the food was amazing,
yeah,
and I ate. I
yeah.
ate. I ate a lot, and I thought I was maintaining my weight. For some reason, the trousers were getting tight, but the mirror, I look great. I get on the scale. I weigh perfect, and I go for dinner and I eat a lot. And then when I stepped off the boat, I had to deal with 8 pound gain, and I hate that. I got set.
Sam,
I got
it's
robbed.
that's the magic of the vacation. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
So I guess, Sweet Seller, my bottom line is if you look at the consulate for their criteria for Dropbox stamping, that's the most important thing there. But again, remember if your parents want to come in, come in the month of May, and their visas expire on June 1st, those visas are good for the purposes of their travel. Is the presuming it's for your parents, I guess.
Yeah.
So from Chandrakanth, a question about one of my favorite types of visas, Sam.
Well, it is your favorite, but it's extremely limited in
Well,
geographic
not if
application.
you're an Australian.
Well, it there
It's
is
quite
more to
versatile
the
for
world
Australians.
than Australia, Brian.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. What's the population of Australia? It's something like 20 million or something like that, or if that much. But let's talk about E3 visas. E3 visas are like a cousin of H1B visas. They're available to citizens of Australia, and they are like H1B visas in that they require an LCA and you have to work in a specialty occupation, but there's no cap on them. Well, actually, asterisk, Sam, there's a cap on them, but that cap has never been reached to my knowledge. And meaning, if there's somebody in our audience who's in Australia right now and they have a prospective job and a qualifying job in the United States, they could, in theory, get an E3 visa. And to get to Chandrakant's question, basically, if you're here on an E3 visa, you need to get stamped when they change employers when staying in the USA.
Well, the good news is no, you don't need to get new stamp.
But
But what?
but but you have to file to change employers with USCIS.
Not only that, but also, well, yeah. So the question is, do you need to go out and get stamped and come back? So there's premium processing, or there's
I
no
believe
premium
there is
processing.
premium processing
I think
for
there's premium processing. So why would you
E3
want to leave the
visas.
country and come back?
Well, because to file with USCIS, well, first of all, if you, so let's agree on the premise that if you want to change E3 employers, you need to get approval. And the two ways to do it is one, file in the United States with USCIS, or two, leave the country, go to the consulate, then get a new stamp. Right?
And process your E3 visa at the
Great,
consulate.
process through the consulate. Right? Okay. Well, why would you want to leave the country? Because USCIS, first of all, you can't. The portability rules don't apply to E3 visas. Meaning,
Okay.
if you want to change employers, you need premium processing if you want that to happen quickly.
Hmm.
And there's that. Plus, as soon as you leave the country and you want to come back, you're gonna have to go for that stamping anyway. You know?
Okay. Any other reason?
No, not really. I've stated my case pretty well. I think you have more though. Do you have more?
I do.
Okay. I love it.
Anytime I can offer my client a solution
Yeah.
and keep him in the U.S., I will prefer that over taking my client outside the U.S. That's a general rule. Jerking my client outside the U.S. and back in is unnecessary risk with all kind of potential consequences that are unanticipated. Why would I
Sure.
do that? And therefore, my recommendation, counselor, would be to keep him in the U.S., file for the premium processing, file for the transfer, get him to a new job I mean, the timeline, I don't think there's much savings flying and booking and coming back. I mean, there could be
Well,
house, there could be
I,
kids.
well,
Listen.
I would have.
So
Yeah.
you're legally not correct. Correct. You're legally correct, Brian.
Well, those are
It's
the
just
options. Yeah.
but practically, I just prefer keeping my client in the U.S. And by the way, Australia is 26 million people. But go ahead, you were
It's
pretty close.
26 million. Wow, I am just on fire in terms of what is the
Yeah,
population of Australia.
yeah,
Now, okay, good point, Sam. Because I talk about immigration issues, but obviously sometimes people call us and want to talk about their immigration options. And you're right. Your worry, I think your worry is legitimate because as soon as I get on the plane to leave the country, all it takes is that job, something to happen in that job for it increases the chances for shenanigans, for wacky happenings,
yeah,
versus your employer getting you on board immediately.
If you're here, you stay here. Do it. Do it in the
Yeah,
U.S.
I guess I'm not advocating for unnecessary travel. I
Risk. Yeah,
guess
yeah.
it's an option though for
Both
sure.
options. Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I compare it to TN visas. TN visas is very popular to go back to the border, Sam, rather than extend your stay in the United States. I guess it depends upon where you are in the country,
Because
though.
but there's differences. Well,
Yeah,
that's number one.
proximity. Yeah,
Yes, number one. Number two, the TN visa is processed at the border.
yeah,
So practically speaking, you can stay 1 minute and then back.
yeah.
Not my preference, but Canada is contiguous to the U.S.
Sure,
You can practically wake up in the morning
definitely.
and sleep in your bed. I mean, not practically.
Yeah,
I'd say more than 50% chance,
yeah,
especially if you are in anywhere within a 5 hour driving distance to a border. Now, if you're in the southern states, Texas and so forth, then you're taking a flight or it's longer, maybe. But Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, all those states and further on are it's a 5 hour, 4 hour drive, and then
mhm,
back
yeah,
home,
yeah,
sleep in your bed.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
different. That proximity factor is a big one.
yeah.
Um, a little bit of commentary from Empire regarding our prior topic of conversation of the day, Mr. JD Vance.
Not
Um,
not a fan of globalization. Yeah,
from his book, it's his belief that this is what destroyed the middle class when GM and other USA companies outsource local jobs and told to tell people, oh yeah, go learn how to code. Get yourself one of those 21st century jobs by going.
you have to go to Middletown, Ohio, which is a wonderful location, wonderful city, to understand Vance. Because it's a small town America in the Rust Belt.
Mhm.
It is 50,000 population. By the way, the household, I was quoting the median income. The household income is comparable to $50,000
Mhm.
but the poverty rate is 19%.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
one out of five uh, uh, individuals that live in Middletown, Ohio, are within the poverty uh, income. That's pretty bad. So there is a lot of suffering in that
oh yeah.
and I'm
I
sure
mean,
there's some manufacturing that pulled. I don't know the story of
oh yeah.
Middletown.
I can't. I have had to in the purposes of our immigration work, I know I've done research on this subject of what is there in terms of manufacturing, and I can't remember what was there, but I mean, yeah, it's. I mean, if we're talking about globalization and outsourcing of jobs, I mean, part of that is NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. It's the movement of goods between Canada and Mexico and the United States, and the jobs that come with that as well.
So they're touting an aggressive population growth. Um, by the way, um,
Middletown.
yeah, yeah. So apparently so.
Hmm.
And it would appear to me that it is predominantly white American that live
Yep.
there. Um, Based on this statistic, for me, it's hard for me to figure that out.
Sam, I don't know. You just got me on a big old nostalgia trip. I used to go to Middletown all the time with my buddies Mark and perhaps Alan, who could be very well in our audience right now. He's been known to occasionally
Yeah.
watch us when I was in college. nice place to just, I don't know, go for a little bit. Always had fun there.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
So, I mean, there is all kind of statistics in Bulgaria. I mean, it's a small town. He
yeah,
comes from people that suffer from probably the the negligence of small town America.
yeah,
I mean, we have a big problem in this country. Obviously, small town America has been neglected,
yeah,
and that's really where Trump does very well, is in these towns.
yep,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, that's maybe. Well, Sam, let's maybe we have a couple questions here, and I see Pakala Prasad there. Maybe let's take those last two, and we'll get ourselves out of here. Fair enough.
sounds good to me.
Okay, so Chandrakant has asked before we get to Pakala Prasad, sort of clarifying details, a relatively simple question. It's the classic visa bulletin. When might my date become current? July of 2013. As I recall, EB3, what is it, in August 2012 right now, Sam?
Oh, looking at it, Brian.
EB3 is, no, it's final action dates is in October of 2012 for EB3, meaning, Chandrakant is less than a year off in terms of visa availability
October
dates. What do you think of that?
22nd,
Yeah.
more precisely. So October 22nd to July 2013. Let me look at one more thing here. So I'm gonna have to say it. That's a 2 years, year and a half.
I'd give it 2 years. I'm sort of saying, okay, I think that's a pretty darn good chance. I think 1 year in the next fiscal year, it falls in the category of, it doesn't sound crazy to me, but I wouldn't, be placing all my bets on it. You know, I'd say cross your fingers. The next interesting visa bulletin is, October 2024, the year we're in right now. So yeah.
Yeah.
So let's perhaps finish this up with wrapping up with that Pakala Prasad conundrum, and we'll figure out who was right and who was right, and who was wrong. But
Sounds like you read it. So
yeah,
filed EB3 in October 2020. I-45 submitted filed in June 2023.
yeah. So
So again, it looks like the adjustment was filed in October 2020, Brian. Again,
yes, correct. EB, yeah, yeah, yes. That, you know what, you're right. It's not 100% clear. But I suspect Pakala Prasad's I-485 was filed in October 2020, as so many people in our audience, probably had their filing made. And then they would have submitted an EB3 Supplement J in June of 2023. And I guess what I don't know, and they still don't know, Sam, did Pakala Prasad move to the EB2 category, for
so he
example?
has one more for you. The
Yeah.
next one. Yeah.
Oh, yes?
Yes.
Well, I can't see it yet. Oh, I know.
So
Oh, here. No, here it is.
so should I reach out? So
I see.
there's
I see.
yeah.
Should I reach out to senator or congressman to help? My question was for how do I expedite my case becoming current in August? Brian mentioned initially that I should file I-485J, and I responded to it. I see.
Okay. But
Uh,
he's not giving us his priority date, did he?
well, no, he said. Well, he says it's becoming current in August of 2024. So that's enough.
So it's sometime 2012,
Oh,
83,
oh,
October 2012.
Pakala Prasad adds one a little bit. See, I was making a presumption that was wrong. He says job change only.
Okay.
So
So AC21.
yeah, AC21
Portability. So
portability.
supplement J is important. He
Yeah,
filed it.
I guess I'm presuming that he was. I guess what I'm presuming now is he's always been in the EB3 category. He's never moved to
Yeah.
EB2. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I'm glad we asked because we were definitely going in a different direction.
yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So I mean, he's current.
Yep.
He filed a supplement J
Back in October. Yeah,
in October, so it's not too long ago. They're probably going to ask for another one.
yeah. But that's the thing. I kind of agree with you, because what is very unclear to me, Sam, is when do they think your supplement J is too old? What is the shelf life of a supplement J at USCIS?
I think every adjustment gets an RFE just about. For anything past 6 months. I guess I just
I
answered
think
the
it would be
question.
it would definitely be reasonable
So he's probably
to
right
think.
there. So I would get a new supplement J.
Yeah,
I would get new medical.
yeah,
What would you call a congressman? They're not behind yet. It hasn't been current.
yeah. I mean,
August.
that's the other classic conundrum. It's
Yeah.
if your case has been pending for almost 4 years, but it's only been
You're,
current
you're
for a month. You know?
becoming current in August.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even.
Hasn't been
Yeah,
current yet.
yeah,
So why would you? The Congress would say it is what you're complaining about. Oh, it's gonna. You're complaining about it's gonna be current next month.
yeah. I
What's
think
the?
I think
Yeah.
the problem with
There's
contacting
no
a
Congress yet.
congressperson is explaining that conceptually. It's I understand that. Well, Sam, I'm gonna advocate for.
I'm preemptively complaining. I'm
Well, I'm
complaining
gonna
ahead of time because I know they're not going to process it in
I'm
August.
gonna advocate for Bacala Prasad here, Sam. They've had his case for 4 years. Shouldn't it be ready to go on October 1st? Shouldn't they just be able to push that button when visa availability occurs? Shouldn't they, Sam? Or sorry, on August 1st? Excuse me.
Well, I would love to live in that world,
But
but
it's not what
we
happens.
don't live in that world.
Yeah, they don't have a great system for tracking whose priority date is current. It seems.
They probably open the visa bulletin just like we do.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, they don't get a heads up because you know why they don't get the heads up?
because
Because
it's
the
not their.
State
Yeah,
Department doesn't do
yeah.
it until a week or two before.
You're right. We think they get a little bit of advance notice, but
A week?
a couple weeks, yeah, like about halfway through the prior month. But they probably literally just pull a report. They pull a report, and I imagine the same way we do, and we contact the people who are eligible.
And they will get an advance notice normally if there's a big move.
Yeah,
And when
sure.
there's a big move, the advance notice is worthless because they
Yeah,
are going to be in a buried scenario immediately.
yeah.
What
They're going
does
to
it
take
do?
take. They're going to
So
if
there's no
everybody's
advance.
current, you can't really move yours to the top. I guess. Yeah,
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 I would definitely send them the update medical update supplement J. Make sure you have extra copies because they may lose them
yeah,
of both, please.
yeah.
Originals just to be on the safe side, or copies is enough.
Medical exams
I,
and original signatures aren't required anymore.
I would send the copies and keep the originals. So
Yeah,
if you have to make a copy, you can attest that you're making copies of
yeah,
originals.
yeah, yeah. I mean, medical. Yeah, yeah. I mean, they can give you double copies of the medical exam probably
If you
for
have to.
next to nothing. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah,
So yeah. So with that, yes, and then calling congressman is very premature,
I would agree.
and maybe calling their service, their hot number or their whatever her name is. What's the name of that? It's,
Immigration.
it's not Siri, right?
No, no.
Emma, right? How ridiculous is that? It's
Sam,
worthless.
I want a version. This is. I'm going to make a comment on sexism in virtual assistants. Why isn't there one called Bruce? How come it's always Alexa or Siri or something like
Well,
that?
is Siri a female?
I, I don't. What can I say? I don't have
Siri is neutral.
but it doesn't have a woman's voice. Well, Sam, clearly we've run out of we've run out of immigration talk. If I'm on this subject, but
Yeah,
Siri talks with a woman's voice, though, doesn't it?
you can change it.
Well, fair enough.
Male,
I guess
female accents.
this is true. This is true.
Yeah,
I'll give you that. I guess I've never bothered doing it myself. Yeah.
yeah. All right. With that, my so I don't think there's any more outstanding questions that we haven't addressed that are
No, not
of
really. No. Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you guys for listening to us. 7:09. We're giving it about 9 extra minutes today. Um, well, we'll know more about JD Vance. I think the media will start digging into his background very deeply this week. That's what they do, and we will learn more about his policies. And if there's anything relevant, we'll bring it to you. Anything else, we'll also bring it to you. Until next week, you guys have a wonderful rest of the week.